class, you would see that we did justice to ellipse. Okay, and I hope you enjoyed it. So please stay tuned, as every confusion you've always had about parabola will be explained in details in those videos. Okay, now did you know that the satellite dishes, this car headlights, even the basketball shots are connected to this mathematical curve called the parabola? All right, so today we'll understand parabola from the scratch. So what is parabola? We said it's the locus of a point that moves such that its distance from a fixed point equals its distance from a fixed line. Very powerful definition, and this definition will help us when we are interpreting this graph that you're looking at. Okay, now in our video, when we looked at an ellipse, when I was trying to explain where ellipse came, yes. All right. So whenever a parabola is taking a C shape or something like this, it is this F a comma 0 you are seeing here. Now this is called focus. Now what is a focus? This focus is a fixed point inside the parabola. All right. So in a parabola, we have a point and a fixed point, and we have a fixed line. Now these two things, this focus, this fixed point and this fixed line, is what defines a parabola. Now how does it define a parabola? For us to say that this parabola, yes, this parabola is on the x-axis or is on the y-axis, is determined by where is the fixed point and where is the fixed line. Are we together? Good. Now, after cutting your cone or your conic by a plane, where is the fixed point? Where is the fixed line? If these two things are not defined, you cannot determine whether this parabola is on the x or on the y-axis. So these are the two things that define a parabola. The fixed point, as you can see from the definition, and the what? Fixed line. So I'm coming to the fixed line. So now this fixed point, as you can see, it is here. So this fixed point, why is it a comma 0? It is a because the value of x at this point, remember it's on the x-axis, we call it a. And at that point, since it is lying on the x-axis, the value of the corresponding value for y here will be 0. So we have the focus, since it is on the x-axis, to be a comma 0. Now, unlike the ellipse, the parabola will have one focus. Why? Because it is a curve and it doesn't move around. All right? So it doesn't move around, unlike the ellipse, where it goes round, touching the x-axis on both sides, giving us minus a and plus a. All right? So in this case, we can either have the focus to be negative or we have it to be positive, as the case may be. So you've understood what focus is. All right. Now, somebody may be asking, but if focus, if we have one focus or foci, why do I have minus a comma 0 here? I'm coming. I'm going to explain that. So now I've talked about vertex. I've talked about focus. Now the next thing is directrix. A very important thing you need to note. Now, this directrix is that fixed line, which is usually or must be outside the parabola. Are you getting it now? So just like a focus is a fixed point inside the parabola, this fixed line called the directrix is a fixed line outside the parabola, and that is this line you're seeing, line AB. All right, beautiful. Now, directrix is always an equation. Directrix is always what? It is always an equation. A coordinate, y directrix is what? Is an equation. X is equal to minus a. So whatever you have in your focus as a, the negation is your what? Directrix. Whether the focus is positive or negative, just negate it. You get your equation of what? Directrix. Are we together? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to be talking about is the axis of symmetry. I'm explaining everything on this curve. Axis of symmetry. Now, this axis of symmetry is the line that divides the parabola into two equal halves. Okay, so now since this parabola is on the x-axis, where do you think this parabola is being divided into two equal halves? It is this line. That's the x-axis. That is our axis, just like the line of symmetry. All right. So this line divides this parabola into what? Into two equal halves. Okay. All right. Now, what is this PQ all about? Now, this PQ, that's the distance between this curve, the curve at this point and here. We call it the what? The lactus rectum. The lactus rectum. It is a chord passing through the focus. All right, a chord that passes through what? The focus, and is perpendicular to the what? To the axis. So in this case, this curve is on the x-axis. All right, so that is our lactus rectum. Now, the other thing here in this graph that I am here to talk about, I know you'll be wondering, why do I have this broken line which is not straight? And why do I also have this one moving from P to B? Okay, so let me write it out. I have PQ, I have PQ, and I have BP. So what are these lines all about? Now, these lines is all about, or they are all about what? The eccentricity. Now, locating a point on my plane, that point I will call it P, and the coordinates at P is x, y. I'm going to trace the distance between that point to my focus, and then the distance from that point to my what? To my directrix. And that is how I'll find my what? Eccentricity. Are you getting me now? Very good. Eccentricity, E. Eccentricity. So eccentricity, E, is the distance between what? Distance from focus the ratio of distance from focus and what? Distance from directrix. So now if we are given a coordinate x, y, and we are asked to find the eccentricity, when you get your focus A, you take your x minus A. All right. So when you get the distance from focus, you know how to find distance between 2 points, right? Good. Find distance between points P and F, and then find distance between points P and B. Take the ratio. For a parabola, eccentricity E is equal to 1. Now, why is eccentricity equal to 1? It is equal to 1 because distance from focus PQ is always equal to distance from directrix BP, or PB as the case may be. Do you see that? So since they are equal, take their ratio at any point on the coordinate, it will give you 1. So that is to say that parabola is actually the balance between the hyperbola and the ellipse. Remember that the ellipse is usually less than 1. It lies between 0 and 1, but it has to be less than 1. While the hyperbola is usually what? Greater than 1. So that balance that makes one less, one greater is what? The parabola, which is usually equal to what? Equal to 1. All right. So now, what are the things you need to know as a student? Whether you are in first year or in secondary school, you are learning conic parabola. What do you have to know? You need to know the standard equation of a parabola. You need to know the vertex. how to find vertex, how to find foci or focus, the directrix, the axis of symmetry, how to sketch this graph. I've interpreted this graph for you. Very good. So if you can interpret a graph, it means you can sketch it. How to find tangent and normal, how to find parametric equation, and then the lactus rectum. Now, you see this curve I used to explain all this. This is a curve on the positive x-axis. Now, which other forms can a parabola take? Now, a parabola has four forms. Before I come to the general equation, a parabola has four forms. So the first case, which we just talked about, if we have this, you have your vertex, you have your focus here, so foci. So in this case, you have your y to be the equation y squared is equal to what? 4ax. This is on the positive x-axis. Now, if we have it to be this way, remember that all these shapes or all these forms depends on how the plane cuts the cone or the conic. So since this is on the negative y-axis, we will have our focus to be minus a comma 0. Now for this, the equation of directrix, remember it is usually what? Outside the what? The parabola. So this is where it will be. For this. Now for this is where the equation of directrix will be. Alright? So at this point, for the equation of directrix, at this point, this will cut the x-axis as well, just like we looked at above, minus a comma 0. Now for here, since the equation of directrix is here, we will have point A here now to be positive. Y focus is what? Negative. So this equation is going to be y squared is equal to minus 4ax. Now, like I keep saying, depending on how the cone is cut, it can also be this way or that way. So now, if it is this way, going up, please, this has to touch the coordinates here. I'm going to explain when it doesn't touch. When it is something like this, what happens? Because if I don't explain this way, you will think that it must the vertex will always be 0, 0. It's not true. Okay? So let's just use this to explain the different cases of a parabola. Then I will tell you what happens when the vertex is not 0. So for this, the equation of directrix is going to be here, outside the parabola. Do you see where it is now? Now, this is on the x-axis. So my focus, since it will be inside the parabola, will be somewhere here. It can be outside, it can be below here. So I have it to be on the positive axis. So I have my focus to still be a comma 0, while my directrix is what? Minus a. So my directrix, instead of x is equal to minus a, will now be y equal to minus a, since I'm on the y-axis. Alright? So the same thing happens here. The directrix is going to be here. Since the focus is minus a, sorry, this should be 0, comma a. It's on the y-axis. Then this should be 0, comma what? Minus a. So the directrix is still going to be what? Minus a. Can write it as 0, minus 0, a rather. So if you're asked to find the equation of directrix here, you will have it to be y to be equal to what? A. So now this one, what is the equation of this parabola? Since it is on the y-axis, we'll have x squared to be equal to 4ay. While this one, which is on the negative y-axis, will be x squared is equal to minus 4ay. Are we together now? Okay. Now, before I proceed, what happens when the vertex, so that we can quickly solve questions. What happens when the vertex is not equal to 0? What happens? Now, that is exactly the normal parabola you've always known in the quadratic equation. All right, so in your quadratic equation, these scenarios where the vertex is 0 is when we have what? Equal and distinct roots, right? So in your quadratic equation, when roots are equal and distinct, your b squared is equal to what? 4ac, right? Good. That's why we're actually using all this in these cases above, right? So now when this happens, when the vertex is not 0, it can be this, for instance. So now at this point, we have, this is where this cuts the y-axis. All right, good. So we have a vertex. It can be in any form in the cases, in the 4 cases above. So we have the normal equation of a parabola, which is y to be ax squared plus bx plus what? Plus c, or x to be equal to what? Ay squared plus what? Plus by plus c. Okay, now in that case, y is equal to, now if I want to find my vertex at points h comma k, given that my vertices are h and k, I will have this. I don't want to bore you with the derivations so that the video is becoming lengthy. Where h comma k is the vertex, right? Okay, now to find the vertex, you first of all, the x coordinate, find your x coordinate. When you find it, impute it into the function and find the y. So x coordinate x is equal to what? Minus b over 2a. I hope you know what this minus b over 2a is. Equation of line of symmetry. Beautiful. Okay, now, so very quickly, we're going to be looking at these 3 questions, and with these 3 questions, I think we're good to go. So now find the focus and directrix of, please don't stop at these 3. Anywhere you see a question on parabola, please go ahead and attempt it. All right, and feel free to reach out to me. Okay, so we have y squared to be equal to 8x, and we have to find focus and directrix. I think this one is the easiest question. So now compare it with this equation. Y squared is equal to 4ax. All right, so if this is equation 1 and this is equation 2, compare the coefficients of x in equation 1 and 2. It means that 8 is equal to what? 4a, right? Okay, so if 8 is equal to 4a, divide both sides by, we're looking for a. Your a is your what? A is your focus, right? Or focus. So if you divide both sides, a is equal to 2. Okay, so now since this equation is on the x-axis, so how will I write it? I'll write it as 2, 0. So if this is my foci of focus, what will my equation of directrix be? It will be x is equal to what? Minus 2. So since focus is on the positive side, directrix will be what? On the negative side. As simple as ABC. So now the next question says we should find the equation of a parabola with vertex at the origin and focus to be 0, 3. So what does that mean? It means that this parabola is on the y-axis. All right? Okay, so we have our focus f to be what? 0, 3. And we have to find the what? The equation. So now the equation has to be that y squared is equal to what? 4ax. Where our a is equal to what? Where a is equal to 3. Okay, now it just occurred to me that this equation, this parabola, is actually what? On the y-axis. So since it's on the y-axis, we will be using x squared is equal to 4 a y. Are we together? Beautiful. So please always take note of these things. So we have that x squared is equal to 4 times 3 will give us what? 12y. So this is the equation of the parabola, given that the focus is 0, 3. So now let's look at the main question in today's class that will help us to, that has a whole lot of so now we are to write the equation of the parabola this in its canonical form. So that means the forms we have been using is this h, where h is the vertex on the x-axis, is equal to 4a y minus k. All right, good. When we do not have or this is when the parabola is on the y-axis, or y minus is equal to what? 4a x minus h. Now, what is the difference between this equation and the previous one? The difference between these canonical forms of this equation and the ones we've been using is that h and k are 0. So since h and k are 0, we end up having just x squared is equal to 4ay. That's all. All right. So now let's write down the equation given to us. We have y squared minus 4y minus 12x plus 40 is equal to 0, right? Now, looking at this question, which of these two equations do you think we should be using? Okay, now if you look at this, the equation that should suit into this is the what? The second equation. All right. So now the idea is, since we are to find the vertex, if we can find what our h and k is, we are good to go. That's the essence of breaking it down to its canonical form, although we are asked to express the equation in its canonical form. So the equation is in its standard form. So putting it in its canonical form, since it is on the y-axis, we are going to be completing the squares for what? For y. So as we complete the squares for y, every other thing should be taken to the what? To the other side, right? If we take every other thing to the other side, we'll have 12x minus 40. So now to complete the squares, picking the coefficient, since the coefficient of y squared is 1, I will go to y. The coefficient of y is minus 4. So multiply this minus 4 by half. If you multiply it by half, you'll have what? You'll have minus 2. So this minus 2, square and add to what? And add to both sides. So I'm going to have plus minus 2 here. Now this minus 2 squared is what? Is 4. Okay, so now if I pick the squares on the left hand side, I will have that y minus 2 all squared is equal to what? Sorry, this is 4 and not 40. Is equal to 12x minus 36. Okay, now I'm going to factor out 4. Something is common on this right hand side, right? And what's that? That should be 4. So let me factor out 4. I have y 12 is actually common, not just 12 is common, sorry, not 12 can divide 36, right? Okay. So if we factor out 12, all right, so that it will be in that x minus h will be left in the bracket. So we'll have x minus 3, right? Good. So now, since comparing this with y minus k squared is equal to 4a into x minus h, think our answers are looking at us. It means that our 4a will be equal to what? Will be equal to 12. So our a, that's our focus, is what? Is 3. All right? Good. So having obtained our focus, the next thing will be what our vertices will be, because we are asked to find the vertices, right? Or the vertex. So minus k is equal to minus 2, comparing the two brackets. Minus k is equal to what? Minus 2. That means k is what? K is 2. Now in the same vein, minus h is equal to minus 3. That means h is what? Is 3. So what are the coordinates? You know, we write in coordinates, we write x is x comma y. So we'll have 3 comma 2 to be our coordinates, while that's our vertex, while our focus is what? 3 comma 0. All right, good. Now if our focus is 3, it means that our directrix will be what? Our directrix is going to be x is equal to minus 3. As simple as ABC. Now I want to believe you enjoyed the video. Please do well to like, share, comment, and